I guess so.
Yeah.
All right. We're
Cool.
recording.
When aren't we recording? We're always recording.
That's true.
We learned that from the Snowden documentary.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
Always.
No. We don't do that live. Welcome to the F Movie Podcast. I'm your host today. And always, Dylan Camacho. You can tell the name's right there. With me, it's Pricey Poo. That's not his legal name.
It
Yes,
is.
it is. It's my quarantine name.
Yeah. We've got Mason. I'm not still sure if he's still a Patriots fan or not.
Oh, truth.
Ooh.
Truth.
And Nathan, currently out of play.
I can't even get my hands the way. Yeah. Anyway.
Mason didn't even get the reference, Dylan. Like he saw that. It was like, why do you have that weird stuff behind you?
Wait, you don't know the serial killer Shia LaBeouf one? Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we know what we're doing after this video recording, but let's get through this first. Welcome everybody to the Movie Podcast. Today we're here talking about Winnie the Pooh's Honey Man. What? Honey Boy? Honey Shia LaBeouf's
Child?
in this movie, right?
I think it's called The Florida Project, which is identical to this movie.
Yeah, I mean, this feels a Florida movie. Anyway, this is Honey Boy.
It does.
This is a movie about Shia LaBeouf's childhood, kind of. He plays his dad. That's pretty much it. I went ahead and got that part out of the way. So let's talk about the movie, guys.
Let's talk about it.
Who's teeing off here?
I'll swing for this. You guys mentioned Florida. This feels like a Florida fucking movie. Oh my god! Like the motel trailer trash, the low income, the yelling, the screaming. I'm not sure what time period Shia LaBeouf's dad's supposed to be from, because I'm sure Shia LaBeouf grew up late 80s, early 90s. He's not that much different age from us. But that dad looks like he came from the 60s, stayed in the 60s, and just kept cruising with that, like, his style and everything.
Yeah.
You know, I would say right off the bat that this movie is one of those ones that not really a whole lot goes on. You have to be invested in what's being presented in front of you. And it does just enough for me to keep me locked in. Now, I can see where I might lose people on this bandwagon, but I definitely think this is a movie that I'm like, if this movie doesn't have as much heart as it does, I lose interest in this very quick. I mean, agree? Thoughts, everybody?
Yeah.
I do not agree. But, okay, Mason, you go ahead. We'll go with the agreements first.
Well, I agree to a certain extent, because, like, this movie, I think the only thing that keeps you locked in is the fact that this poor child has, like, such an opportunity, and he's trying to get the best of both worlds with, like, his acting and keep the very rocky relationship with his father, too. When, you would think that most child stars probably have perfect home lives or, perfect parents that are just top notch, willing to do anything for them, when this is the exact opposite. But that's what I think most of this movie kind of revolves around, is just that child. And, like, I think you're supposed to be feeling with him more so than anything else, if that's not dead on. But
I don't know. I kind of felt like the dad was a pretty big part of, like, the character that they were exploring and developing. To me, this movie was a lot about just showing how parents are just as flawed as anything else. They're just as human as anybody else. And they come with a lot of baggage that they're struggling to deal with in the midst of trying to take care of a kid too. His dad definitely isn't perfect. His dad isn't particularly good. But it seems like a very good portrayal of a father who has a lot of problems that he's struggling with and still trying to be a decent dad to his kid.
yeah.
See, I guess I was the one that wasn't on board, and I'll get started with it. So it sounds like for everybody else, like, you basically hop on the movie and you either go along with it or you kind of just keep going down. And I was very much just going down the whole movie. I wasn't on board because it felt like they just got my heart, put it on a dartboard, and just was throwing darts at it repeatedly. No respite, just the whole time, just pow, pow, just like crushing you and crushing you and crushing you. And I'm like dark movies, but there has to be some kind of respite at some point. Like
Mm.
Grave of the Fireflies. I love that movie. It's still the most depressing movie I've ever watched, but there's still redeeming moments where like the brother and sister have these bonding moments. They see their parents and have some bonding moments. There's nothing in this movie to give me any kind of like real laughter, enjoyment. It's just all the time, just dark, 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 bad, bad, bad. Dylan's coming with his rebuttal. Please
No,
continue.
I don't.
Yeah,
Disagree.
you are.
I don't disagree
You do
too
that.
far. Like the moments are. There's maybe only one or two that I can think of off the top of my head. Like as far as just levity in this movie, like I'll agree with you mostly that this drama stays a drama, and it doesn't have the drama beats where there's a lot of our favorite word to use on this podcast. There's not a lot of juxtaposition between the negatives and the positives in this because it just kind of stays at. I would describe it like this: you're underwater, you're about 500 feet underwater, and it's nothing but darkness and blackness. That's where like a lot of this movie sits, and then you come up and you start to see the surface, but you're still underwater. That's kind of this movie. Like you never really look above.
Mhm.
I agree. You're always underwater with this movie. Like there is no
Right.
outside.
I think about like the tiny little moments towards the end, maybe, or like the scenes where he's hanging out with that girl. Again, this is like it all comes with like a hitch, right? Like this is the positive moments of the movie, but these are moments that are still kind of come a little 50-50. You know that like there's already kind of some weird attachment because she's also presumably a hooker in this film. Possibly. I don't know. They give the implication that she's obviously like there for money and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But it also seems like that she's actually just trying to be a good caring teenager at that time. You have that moment as well whenever it's like him and his dad are kind of making up in like the bathroom scene after he comes back from like the strip club and like all that stuff. And the dad kind of goes on that weird haze, but that to me wasn't necessarily meant to be like an upper point. I think that's supposed to just be more of a demonstration of like kind of the cycle of violence, if you will. Kind of that, well, it can't always be 100% bad. It's going to realistically be about 40% bad after the 100. It's going to look better. It's never going to be good, but it's going to look better. And then it kind of curves into just being this negative cycle still. I think that portrayal is done really well, and I think that's what kind of actually kept me invested in the movie. But for feel-good moments or stuff like that, you don't really get any of that. I think you're supposed to get that whenever you're showing like grown-up Otis, who I guess is supposed to be like Shia LaBeouf in rehab or whatever. Which I don't really love those parts honestly either. I think those are supposed to be kind of uplifting moments because it shows him at least trying. But even then, he's still resisting, kind of just being stubborn and arrogant. And I don't know that those parts felt really extra. Did anybody else feel like these were like, this movie could have just been the kid and the dad part, and maybe added levity instead of just having a different timeline Otis? Or did you guys like that?
No, I also didn't like the present day Otis. I think they only added that to show like, okay. And I feel like they just kept like pounding in the same idea of like, all right, this is what happens when you have like kind of distraught parents. Like this is where you could end up. You know, if parenting doesn't go the right way, you know, you can end up in rehab. You can end up a know-it-all. You can end up what I think they said schizophrenic, right? He was some sort of.
Although you necessarily wouldn't get it that way.
You wouldn't. That's why I didn't know why they even said that. But he had a lot of anxiety and a lot of issues because of that. So
PTSD and all the other stuff that checks boxes for sure. But schizophrenia shouldn't go on to that.
It shouldn't be, but they did diagnose him with that, or they said it. This movie. Sorry, go ahead, Nathan.
I was just going to say that personally, I thought the modern time sections were fine and appropriate to like kind of justify a lot of the other movie, because I feel like if you don't have this like searching adult side going back and almost analyzing the childhood part of it, it's a weird movie that's just kind of showing a very dysfunctional father-son relationship the whole time, and that's it. I think the present day stuff gives some added context and makes for a little bit more of a meaningful movie, personally.
So I would add,
not perfect.
Right. I would add that I think that like on paper it's a good concept. I like the parallels to kind of sit here and say this is sure how these things could develop, how how your life could look if you just come from a background household and stuff like this. I just didn't like the execution as much, I guess. Like there was a lot of like the weird, like the chicken metaphor kind of going on and the ongoing like chicken thing there. I remember thinking like, why the fuck is this chicken in this scene again? Like, what is so important about this chicken? I'm sure Shia LaBeouf could tell me all the symbolism behind it, but I don't know. I didn't care. Like, yeah, the execution I think was lacking. I think it had a good concept in mind. Like, again, it's one of those things where I'm like, if you wrote this movie down on paper and then you had like the person explaining it, like this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, I'd be like, oh yeah, I think that sounds really sound and cool. And then they do it, and then I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I did never get on the parts with older Shine with all that stuff.
And I never like I feel like if you take the fact that this is based on a true story about Shia LaBeouf and you take that away from the movie, it loses a lot. Because the movie, I think, doesn't hold up near as well if it's just the story of this like random beaten down kid that turns into an actor. And I feel like it kind of rests on that a lot, especially when they marketed the movie. It's all about like, this is about Shia LaBeouf's life and how he dealt with his father and stuff. And I mean, I kind of see why they do that, but it hinders the movie a bit because it relies on that so much. Like I told Mom that I watched this movie and she was like, who's Shia LaBeouf? Like if she watched this movie, she would see a movie just about this poor kid who gets abused, which she wouldn't watch in the first place. But she would just see a movie that she would dislike even more than me, just because it's just a movie to her, because she doesn't know it's based on Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the reality is that is what this is based on. So I agree, if you take that away, that can lose some of the context, but that context exists. So I'm going to consider it. Like, yes, to me, that did make it a more interesting movie. And, like, sure, I'm cool with that. Like, I'm not going to knock it for him doing something like this. Personally, I think this was a pretty well done movie, but we'll get more into that.
What did we think about Shia as his dad?
As far as, like, his character, performance.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know. I wanted to take him out back to the woodshed. You know, like I hated him, but I mean, I guess that's part of it. Like he did really well. Like I hated the jokes that he would, like something about.
It's so good how bad it is, right?
What do the Chinese use as sunglasses?
For a headband or for a blindfold.
A blindfold, a shoestring. Like, that is awful. Like, some of these jokes are just so bad, but they're
just genuine laughing at it, though. I'm like,
yes.
Oh God, I know people just like that, though. Like, I think the execution is good, but part of that is that you're supposed to hate this character, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't feel like I hated the character. Really?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Nathan is about rebutting everything we're saying. He's like, you all think this. I am over here.
Bryce, get the 10 button ready. Get the 10 button ready.
I didn't hate him. I thought he was a product of his time. The jokes were terrible jokes. Again, they were products of their time. It was of an era. It was probably literally the jokes that he heard his dad say when he was younger, too. And I know outside context is something that you all don't often like to assess with these movies, but I think that's just as much a valid thing for why that was in there.
Sure.
Sure, it was a terrible joke. Sure, I cringed at it, but like I get where it was coming from, and I don't really mind that it was in there. It seems appropriate for such a weird, flawed person to have such terrible jokes like that.
It's kind of a weird movie to grade on for this, because I feel like so much of this movie isn't even just looking at it objectively as a movie. We're looking at it technically as a perspective autobiography, so to speak, right? I mean, it's Shia LaBeouf doing his story, but it's also come through his dad's story as well, while acting as his dad. And it's weird because it's also, we're essentially supposed to just get generic abusive father with the alcoholic history, which, I mean, I hate to say is like the dime a dozen template for making an abusive father, but I mean, it is what it is. It's a common factor amongst a lot of it. So you look at that and then you're like, this is kind of weird, because I'm like, this is supposed to be based on a real person, but I don't know. but is just be generic enough that I can relate. And I think in that way, Shaida's actually a really solid performance with his dad on this stuff. Like, I remember thinking that a lot of his actions, what he says, what he kind of does, like, I never felt myself questioning that character. I was just like, no, this seems pretty authentic to what I think this person would be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one part of the movie that I latch onto and say, yeah, I think the movie really excels in feeling, at least in this timeline part, really organic. Like, I bought it. Like, if you told me that, okay, this is like what a domestic household would look like for this stuff, I'm like, yeah, I mean, no, yeah, I think that looks pretty spot on. Like, it didn't feel like a thing I was questioning, or it never did enough to take me out of it. But you're also just saying, all right, watch a movie about just what domestic violence in a home looks like and having an abusive father and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, this isn't really super fun for me. Like,
Not having a great time.
right.
So you guys were talking about earlier, like the whole like Shia LaBeouf thing. Obviously, I wouldn't watch a movie like this if I didn't know that there was some background with that. I mentioned a movie earlier. It is called The Florida Project. Came out a couple of years ago. It is, in my opinion, very similar to this. The only difference is it is set solely based on a 6-year-old girl whose mother is just back like awful living style or living conditions. But a lot of similarities. And if however you guys rate this movie, or anyone watching, like if you thought that this one was good, I thought that the Florida Project was actually better, because they didn't have that stigma of like, oh, Shia LaBeouf wrote it. You know, this is him playing his dad. There's very much this meta stance from this movie, which that's why I think that this movie fell a little bit short for me. But like I said, that performance, he had some chemistry, obviously, with his dad. You know, that's why he played the part. It makes sense. But yeah. So, any other qualms? Anything? I didn't like how he like assaulted the new ex-wife's husband or whatever.
I
or
don't think
whatever.
that's not. That was a Big Brother.
Yeah, that was his Big Brother, Big Sister.
Oh,
which is,
I thought
yeah.
that was his wife's or
No.
ex-wife's
No.
new man.
Yeah, no, I thought that for a long time
No.
until I realized when they were talking about the Big Brother Big stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, this is the Big
Mhm.
Brother. Yeah.
Oh, that makes
No.
sense why I guess he got away with it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that part. Yeah, no, that part. I'm glad that he did, not because I wanted that. Fuck that guy. Fucking Big Brother. No, Big Brother's a great program. I'm sure to go be a Big Brother today. But no, yeah, it was for him. Like, you just knew, right? Like, that's what. Not only is that what the character would do, but like it was so much a silent storm. Like, from the very beginning, they say, like, even whenever he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the Dodgers game with my friend or whatever, and he's like, yeah, your friend's 14, who's driving? I think his name's Tom, right? Like, he's like, Tom.
Something like
Yeah.
that. Todd or
Yeah.
Thomas, something.
So then, like, the tone is just set from there. Like, you know that this dad does not like him. And then he gets to a point where it's like, doesn't like him. No, invite him over. And I'm like, oh, no, yeah. Like, this is going to go fucking poorly. Like,
Yeah.
and then it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just in a moment like that, I was like, yeah, I think that needed to happen. If he just tried to chum it up and he was just doing like that and it never had a moment where it was like, you know, this dad is either only doing this because he wants to just fuck with this guy, or, you know, maybe he's trying to get like background info. Because for a little bit of the movie, I'm with Mason actually. I thought the same thing. I was like, why is they bringing over the stepdad over to that? And then like as they're talking, I'm like, oh, he's the big brother. I'm like, oh, that's not really super clear. Like,
Yeah.
2 out of 4 podcast hosts think that he is the stepdad. So
Oops. Put us on the Maury show. See if
yeah,
the test results come back.
Aubrey.
Yeah. Should we go into Fat, Thin, or Perfectly Fit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
introduce it, Mason. Come on, introduce our
I
segment.
just did, so
He
let's
did.
go.
All right.
No, but what's it mean? What's it
No.
mean?
I don't know.
Oh,
I've never
well.
tuned into this show before. I just like Shia LaBeouf documentaries. Tell me more about this random segment.
Don't worry, we're gonna get into it with the descriptions.
Okay,
That's
that's fine.
I'll go first. I think that this movie was a little bit fat. I don't understand why that the stripper girl, the prostitute girl, was even involved. I mean, like, I understand that he had a friend, or that he kind of needed like a friendly figure in the movie to kind of lean on, I guess, at a certain point. I don't know if it was the good call making it like his dad's crush. Like, I just thought that whole thing was weird. Like, you can make it a kid 3 doors down. You know, you could make it anybody. Don't make it a prostitute that's, I guess, also struggling in a way. But I don't know. I just thought that was a little bit weird. I probably could have done without her. Other than that, I think I was okay with it. But yeah, it was a little bit fat for me.
Bryce?
I thought it was fit. I mean, it's not going to help it score any because obviously I didn't enjoy it. The one time I've got to talk, I've expressed my distaste for it. But I mean, I didn't think there was anything I needed else put on. I didn't think anything needed to be taken away. I mean, just thought it was fit. It wasn't a very long movie, so I was very much okay with that.
Yeah, I would say it was fit too. As far as that character, though, I feel like she made sense to be in it just for the fact that, like, it's another abused, troubled youth, and like kind of finding that common ground, and like I think it's good too that it didn't like turn into something kind of inappropriate.
I saw it going that way.
It was like
and I was
on the
really
verge
worried.
of that, and it just very skirted the edge of that and left in an almost comfortable, like, just being kids a little bit, even though she was kind of older. So that was, I feel like that was fine. I'm gonna say that most everything about this movie was fine, though, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Dylan.
What's up?
Have you seen mid-90s, that Jonah Hill directed movie? Just came out like last year.
No, I've heard good things though.
Okay, well, there's like sorry, Nathan, to your point, there's this 14-year-old or like 12-year-old kid trying to fit in with everyone, and it gets very inappropriate with like his friend group. And like, I saw that happening in this movie. I'm glad it didn't, because that part was very weird. But
Right.
yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, well, so we're just skipping around the thing. I'm glad they didn't plow a kid this movie, guys. I'm really glad that didn't happen.
Hear us saying that, please. Hear us saying that.
Right. Yeah, I think this movie's a little fat. I remember thinking, I kind of expressed earlier, like, in execution, the modern day scenes didn't super land for me. I think I would kind of throw up some of these ones because I just felt like any of the chicken scenes I'm probably cutting. Like, I won't lie. It didn't do it for me. Like,
I agree with that.
Yeah, the chicken part's like, I just wasn't super hot on it.
Me either.
But yeah, and you guys mentioned like the girl character in this movie, and I hate it because I hear Shia LaBeouf. This is kind of like the defense from a movie because it's autobiographical by nature. Like, it's like, well, she's there because she was there in real life. And I'm like, sure, but narratively speaking, in the sense of this movie, it feels a little weird to do this, to do this, to do this. So I think that's going to be an excuse that, like, I don't know, if this, for whatever reason, is the one review that gets really popular, people start watching and have criticism on it. It was based on his life, you idiots.
Yeah, just get spammed.
Right, yeah, so it's a foolproof thing. If you made this part of the review in the middle where people don't watch, I will vouch and say that I get that it's autobiographical, but I don't think that it adds to the movie at times. I think some of the parts were kind of extra, and yeah, I will say I've gone the whole movie without saying as a therapist because there's therapy scenes in this film, and I'll actually say by far it's not terrible. Good job, honey boy. I'll say that as a pro right here. Honeybees. So, sorry, I keep thinking about these Japanese killer wasps going around killing bees now because that's a thing.
Murder hornets or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fat for me. It's not super long. I mean, the runtime I think is solid, but it could lose 10, 15 minutes or so. Like,
yeah.
So I don't know, boys. It seems that we're not super hot takes with this one. So I guess we go into scores then.
Sure. Yeah, I want to save Nathan for last.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I'll lead with the scores then.
Okay.
I'm gonna land at like a 7.5 with this actually. So here's my thoughts on it. Overall, it's not a movie that does anything exceptionally well. I think if it did something really, really good, I might push it to an 8. But I think at nature, if you take away the Shia LaBeouf stuff, it loses a lot of its, I guess, appeal. But if I'm looking at it simply as just a movie kind of demonstrating a realistic expectation of being a child growing up in a domestic violence house or something like that, I think the movie nails that part. Like, I think I would shorten this to like a short movie or whatever I'm thinking about, like a documentary or something, short film or something. I would shorten this a lot if I was going to just focus on the strengths of it. But it has all this other stuff tying into it, and I think it's okay. I remember being entertained enough to watch the movie all the way through and not thinking that I'm like looking at the clock or waiting for it to wrap. But it also didn't, it never did something where I was like, man, this part was absolutely amazing. I think the best part is probably like the kid looking at the dad and he's saying all that stuff he wish he could say. And then he goes inside and stuff like that. Like, again, all that stuff I think is very genuine and like real. Like, it didn't feel a Hollywood movie to me. It felt organic. And I think all of that does it enough just to push to 7.5, but I wouldn't push it any further than that. But the movie doesn't give me any reason to even go too much further. 7.5 actually may be high for me, but it's just where I land right afterwards. So, Mason.
This movie, like, it kind of left me feeling grimy, which I feel like it's supposed to, which is kind of good, I guess. I give it a 6. I don't know if it's just because I couldn't connect with, the living conditions or the lifestyle or the area. I'm agreeing with you guys. I do think it takes place below the Bible Belt somewhere where there's a lot of beaches and lower class homes. But I don't know. I'll never watch this movie again. Shia LaBeouf is the main drive in this movie, and not only was he like the main protagonist, I guess, or antagonist.
Yeah, you say protagonist. Protagonist doesn't mean you always side with him.
Well, I mean, him as a I mean, pro and technically.
Either and, but not only that, but he wrote it and all this. I give him credit. It needs credit where it's due. But yeah, it's just at a 6 for me. I don't hate that I watched it, and I don't hate it. It's just So.
All right, Price, trend this score a little bit lower.
Oh, I can help you out, buddy.
Look no further.
I feel like it relied so much on the Shia LaBeouf. Like, if it was just like throw Shia LaBeouf out the window and just like same performances, same story, it's losing a lot. And I don't like that too much. I know Nathan's going to come back here in about 30 seconds and say like he likes that part.
All the way back up the mountain.
yeah, it's definitely going to be like that. Like there's like the music there's nothing outstanding there. If we're even going even more critical eye, no shots in the movie really. Like, I was like, wow, that's an interesting shot that they did right there. Like,
what about
it really
Snake in the pool, though?
I mean, the lighting.
The moccasin.
The lighting, I don't think the shot was cool. It was more the lighting of that scene I thought was interesting. It had, like, the purple neon kind of going through there. But still, I mean, even as a movie, I didn't think it really hit. And then the whole movie itself was just a downward trajectory the whole time, with moments with that girl that's like, hey, we can put a little bit of something in here. It's still depressing, but still going downhill. And most of the time I would like that. I like dark movies, but this is not one of them. I would definitely never watch this again. And the forced symbolism of the chicken, I still don't understand. And the fact that I still don't understand it, I'm not going to go research it or anything. Ooh, Dylan, you are close. But I'm going with a 3.5 because I don't know. I feel like if I go below a 3.5, that's getting into territory of movies I've rated worse. And like,
you gotta realize you have 10 polls that scores, and you're just like, I wouldn't go below that.
I'm getting down to like Excalibur and that movie Nathan picked for me. I forgot that one.
So all the movies,
The Fountain.
The Fountain. Like, I'm getting down to that territory, and I didn't hate it that much. I did get out my phone and start playing again near the end of the movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was multitasking, but it lost my interest right after like the dad hit the kid, and then like the movie just goes on like it just happened. Yes, that's like real life. I get it, but the fact that like it's like coming back and Shia LaBeouf's like, oh, I'm going to show you where I grew my weed and stuff. And like, that's supposed to be a moment of like him being a real character. I don't care. I'm writing him off. He's done. Like, put him under. I don't care. But yeah, I did not enjoy the movie. I will never recommend it to anybody, and I will never watch it again.
Well, I mean, I have spent a lot of time defending this movie. No, it's not. I mean, like, I enjoyed it. I was engaged by it. I am going to consider the fact that this is somewhat autobiographical. I think Shia LaBeouf's performance as his father was very good. Like, I think he did a great job at that. The visuals and such are whatever, mostly forgettable. Ultimately, this isn't a movie that, like you said, I'm not really going to suggest anybody watch this that I can think of, unless they're really into Shia LaBeouf. in which case they've probably already seen it.
I thought I was really into Shia LaBeouf.
This movie.
like I've seen Charlie Countryman, I've seen the Nymphomaniac 1 and 2. Like I've seen a lot of his crap besides Transformers.
Transformers.
Not this one. No, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, this isn't one that I'm gonna like be going back to, but I do think it was a pretty solid movie. So I'm gonna land at a 7.5 as well. I mean, my 7.5 is a little bit different than Dylan's, so I would say mine's arguably like a higher 7.5 than Dylan's is.
Slighted.
No, like as in like if I'm giving it a 7.5, it's higher on the scale than what his might be normally.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm the same way.
Yeah. So I rather enjoyed the movie, but yeah, it's not really one to go back to.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Well, that was our lukewarm version of Honey Boy. We put this Honey Boy in the microwave, and then about 10 seconds pulled it out, did the review. But if you had a lot more feelings and thoughts on Honey Boy, make sure to let us know in the comments below. We've got another movie coming up, guys. We didn't talk about this beforehand, so now we're going into the Wild Wild West. What turn is it this week?
It's Mason's.
It really is.
Mason's.
It's me.
Which means we have what on the table?
We're gonna watch a movie called Brick. Anybody? Dylan, especially you. I'm looking at you, man.
Actually, I haven't seen it.
A 2005 Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie that I watched a couple of years ago. Yeah, watched a couple of years ago. It's old, so I think that Nathan might like it. Might be Dylan's cup of tea.
It's up Nathan's alley already.
Yeah. But yeah, I won't go into anything else. I just remember it being pretty good, so we'll see.
Cool.
Okay. Hot take. It was okay. I'm gonna make all of you watch it. I thought it was okay.
I thought it was
He's
okay.
just setting the bar low.
Yeah.
I hope I can at least average or exceed what Honey Boy's average is for this.
It's not a high bar, sir. Not a high bar.
Hey, that's okay. I just gotta go better than that. So.
All right, so we're going for child stars who had a movie that was okay that we want to watch and see if we can get an okay score. Is that the unspoken theme?
Ooh, theme?
No. We just Damn it. Anyway, guys, make sure to tune in for the theme party next week. It's all themes all the time, even when we don't discuss it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you like it. If you've already seen Brick, let us know what you think about it next week. Don't tell us this week.
Not on this one.
We have
no spoilers.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
But we spoiled Honey Boy. Nobody dies at the end. Cool. Anyway, guys, we'll see you next week. Make sure to like that thumbs up, all the thumbs, all the subs, all the comments. We'll see you all next week with Brick, the fighter movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt fighting Tom Hardy in 2005. We'll see you then, guys.